Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're going to completely shatter some of your most basic assumptions about the planet we call home. You know, we all grow up looking at those neat, color-coded maps on classroom walls and spinning those perfectly round globes on our desks. But the truth? Actually, our planet is a messy, mind-bending, and gloriously chaotic place that absolutely refuses to play by the rules we've tried to force upon it. So today, we're throwing out the textbook and looking at the real world.
Okay, let's dive into this. Do you really comprehend the massive scale and the downright bizarre rules of Earth? When we look at a standard map, our brains make these immediate assumptions about size and logic that are, honestly, completely wrong. The two-dimensional representations we're just so used to seeing, they distort our reality in ways that mask some genuinely shocking geographical truths. Let me show you what I mean with a pretty simple question of scale.
Just think about this for a second. If I asked you to compare the size of a country to an actual celestial body, you'd probably assume the celestial body wins every single time, right? But check this out. Australia is almost 4,000 kilometers from east to west. The moon, its diameter is only 3,400 kilometers. That means the landmass of Australia is actually nearly 600 kilometers wider than the moon we see in our night sky. It's just an incredible realization of exactly how massive our continents really are when you take them off the page and measure them against the cosmos.
And the surprises totally don't stop with landmass. They apply to the people living on it too. We all know Canada is the second largest country in the world by total area. It is absolutely enormous. Yet a single U.S. state, California, holds roughly 39.14 million people, while the entirety of that massive nation of Canada holds roughly 35.85 million. The vast, sweeping northern expanses of Canada are incredibly beautiful, for sure, but they are sparsely populated compared to the densely packed cities of the American West Coast. So, size on a map rarely equals human footprint.
All right, moving on to Section 1, Borders that Defy Logic, or as I like to call it, the human mess.
Let's look at the towns of Barley-Hertog and Barley-Nassau. These two are the undisputed champions of weird borders. There are 22 pieces of Belgium completely surrounded by the Netherlands. But wait, it gets crazier. Inside those Belgian enclaves are 7 Dutch counter-enclaves. It's literally a country inside a country inside a country. The border is marked by white crosses painted right onto the streets, cutting straight through living rooms and cafes. Your nationality here is literally determined by the location of your front door. Some residents have even moved their front doors just to change their citizenship, and restaurants will have tables in 2 different countries so they can play by different closing time rules. How wild is that?
So the crucial point is that the lines we see on global maps are very rarely drawn with any geographical common sense. They're mostly the result of colonial powers using rulers on maps of places they'd never even been, carving up continents like Africa into perfectly straight lines. Or they're the result of shifting rivers, like the Danube, that literally change course and take the border with them. And of course, they're the product of ancient, poorly worded treaties that we are somehow still stuck dealing with centuries later.
This whole historical mess results in places like Bir Tawil. Right between Egypt and Sudan lies a 2,060 square kilometer patch of desert that neither country actually wants. It's one of the only pieces of land on Earth not claimed by any recognized nation. And why? Well, it's all because of conflicting border treaties from 1899 and 1902. If either country claims Bir Tawil, they legally have to give up a neighboring, much more valuable piece of land called the Halaib Triangle. So both countries just completely refuse Bir Tawil. It's literally the geographical equivalent of a gift nobody wants to regift.
Let's jump into Section 2, Time Zone Mindbenders, Bending the Clock.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Which country has the most time zones? I'd guess that you're probably picturing the massive, sprawling landmass of Russia, stretching all the way across northern Asia. Or maybe the United States, stretching from the East Coast all the way out to Hawaii and Alaska, right?
But the answer is actually France. No way, right? They hold the record with a whopping 12 time zones. While the European mainland of France is pretty small, the nation has numerous overseas territories scattered across 5 different continents, from French Guiana in South America to islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Each of these territories operates in its own time zone based on its geographic location. So the sun literally never truly sets on the French clock.
And you know, time zones can create literal time travel, right here on Earth. Up in the Bering Strait, there are 2 islands, Big Diomede, which belongs to Russia, and Little Diomede, which belongs to the USA. They are separated by only 2.4 miles of water. In the winter, when the ocean freezes, you could theoretically walk between them in about 20 minutes. But because the international dateline runs right smack between them, Big Diomede is 21 hours ahead of Little Diomede. You can literally look across a 2-mile gap and see tomorrow.
Moving right along to Section 3, the true highest peak, nature's scale and anomalies.
Okay, before we talk about mountains, we have to define something called the equatorial bulge. Because the Earth is spinning, centrifugal force pushes mass outward at the equator. So our planet isn't a perfect sphere, it's an oblate spheroid. It's effectively slightly smushed at the poles and bulging at the middle. Now, understanding this scientific concept is absolutely crucial because it perfectly sets up the debunking of a massive worldwide myth.
We all know Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, right? Well, actually, scratch that, it really depends on how you measure it. There's a massive distinction between measuring above sea level and measuring distance from the Earth's center. Everest is 8,849 meters above sea level, but what's really interesting about this is Mount Chimborazo, an active volcano in Ecuador. It sits right on that equatorial bulge we just talked about. Because the Earth itself is thicker there, Chimborazo's peak is actually 6,384.4 kilometers from the center of the Earth. That makes Ecuador's Chimborazo roughly 2.1 kilometers farther into space than Mount Everest. So if you want to get as close to the stars as possible while keeping your feet on the ground, you don't go to Nepal, you go to Ecuador.
All right, Section 4, Secrets of the Amazon, the lungs of the planet.
The Amazon River Basin covers about 40% of the entire South American continent. It's just vast beyond comprehension. And its incredible scale is exactly why it's so vital for us. It's estimated that the dense trees and plant life of the Amazon produce roughly 20% of the Earth's total oxygen. By constantly absorbing carbon dioxide and pumping out oxygen, it essentially acts as the lungs of our planet. This one geographic feature influences the atmosphere we all breathe, regardless of where on Earth we actually live. But there is a very sobering reality we really must understand here. Scientists warn of a critical tipping point for the Amazon, the exact moment it can no longer produce its own rainfall to sustain its ecosystem. We are currently sitting at an estimated 17% deforestation rate. The tipping point, well, it's believed to be somewhere between 20% and 25%. If we cross that threshold, this lush, global life support system could rapidly transform into a dry savanna. And what exactly pushes us toward that tipping point? The drivers are mostly human activities, unfortunately. We're talking about unchecked agricultural expansion and ranching, illegal gold mining which poisons the land with mercury, selective illegal logging that damages these completely interdependent ecosystems, poorly planned roads giving access to remote areas, and devastating fires used to clear land that just spiral out of control. It's a very delicate balance being disrupted at a massive, massive scale.
And finally, Section 5, the sinking Dead Sea, sinking extremes. 429. That is how many meters below sea level the surface of the Dead Sea sits right now. Nestled between Jordan and Israel, it's literally the lowest point on dry land. But what's even more incredible is that it isn't static. The Dead Sea is actively sinking by about a meter every single year as its waters recede.
So, why is it called the Dead Sea and why is it shrinking like this? The mechanics are super fascinating. Let's move to and see how this builds. First, rivers like the Jordan flow into this deep basin. Second, because it's the lowest point around, absolutely no rivers flow out. Third, the intense desert heat causes massive evaporation, and it evaporates much, much faster than rainfall can replenish it. Fourth, when the water evaporates, it leaves all the salt and minerals behind. This whole process makes the water nearly 6 times saltier than the ocean. It is so dense with minerals that fish cannot live in it, but humans can literally float on the surface like a piece of wood while reading a book. It's wild.
So, what does this all mean? What should you take away from all of this? The reality is that our world just cannot be perfectly contained on a flat piece of paper. Our planet is incredibly dynamic. Rivers shift, colonial lines slice straight through living rooms, mountains bulge toward the stars, and time zones literally bend our perception of reality. The Earth refuses to be neatly categorized by our maps or our rulers, and honestly, that is exactly what makes studying it so incredibly exciting.
We've crossed the globe today, from the bizarre borders of Europe to the sinking depths of the Dead Sea. But it really makes you wonder, what other hidden geographical anomalies are waiting to be discovered just around the corner, maybe even in your own backyard? Next time you look at a map, don't just see the lines. Look for the stories, the errors, and the incredible forces of nature hiding right in plain sight. Keep exploring, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.